Hey everybody, it's your old pal Steve Moore, owner of RUNMOORE, this fabulous brick and mortar running shop located in Westminster, Maryland. Today we're going to do a preview on the new Hoka Bondi 9. And before we get any farther, yes, I'm going to continue on calling it the Bondi, not the Bondi, so get over it, we're moving on with it. The Bondi 9, this is coming out in January of 2025. This is a really big and important update for Hoka. The Bondi 8 was a really big successful shoe for them in a lot of ways, and also not a great shoe for them in a lot of ways. We had a lot of people, including like some of my closest friends who are big Hoka fans, who loved the Bondi 7. I mean, really ran through a lot of Bondi 7s, and when the Bondi 8 came, they felt very disappointed into it. At the same time, there were people that were new to the brand who fell in love with the Bondi 8. So it was kind of a polarizing shoe. So this was sort of an important update for them. Also, the Bondi 8 was around for 2 years. I mean, we love this shoe. It's done very well for us. But sometimes you just get tired of seeing a shoe on the wall, and especially as we saw shoes that were starting to look like this come down the line from Hoka, where it almost started to get lost in the mix with some of the other models that they were trying to mimic aesthetically the look of this shoe. So we are very excited to see a new Bondi for a myriad of reasons, but I think it's an important shoe for the brand, and I think they did a really good job in a lot of ways of listening to the consumer. Because I think across the board, one thing that was pretty apparent from what we saw and what people were saying is that they did not love how much this shoe flared out. I think it makes a lot of sense for a runner and walker to have that wider platform, and they were really trying to toe the line between a neutral and stable option. And by fanning it out, it certainly gave a little more ground contact to it. The bad part was aesthetically, people just didn't like it. People felt that it was a little clumsy, it was clunky, it took up too much, I'm kicking myself. Like, we heard a little bit of everything to it. Again, obviously there's people that didn't bother, but the people that did were pretty vocal about it. And I will absolutely say that, like, sometimes it legit cost us sales of people that would, I love the shoe, it fits great, all this, I'll never wear it, it looks ridiculous on me. Or I have a super narrow, tiny foot and I'm gonna trip over it. So coming into the Bondi 9, they sort of went back to how the Bondi 7 was, which was a little more of a vertical platform to it. So it doesn't have so much flare out to it. So how they tried to combat that was they made a few little tweaks. They narrowed the forefoot just a little bit to it. I know aesthetically you can also see it, but it is just a pinch narrower on the forefoot, and they widened the base and the midfoot out. So I think they added a little stability on the heel side to it and took away a little bulk from the forefoot to it. Also, again, I know it's just aesthetically, but they took away a lot of those horizontal lines that I actually really liked on the Bondi 8. I'm an island on that, it appears, but I actually kind of like the way that looks. But they cleaned it up here. I think it's way for the better now. I think people are going to be much more this is going to be a much more approachable shoe for a lot of people. The big change, really, for like the people that are using this as an end game consumer for a runner, is they changed the midsole completely. This is the first time they're using a supercritical foam in the midsole here, so much more bouncy. And really, if you have been a ride or die person with Hoka and the Bondi, and guess what? I am ride or die. That's why I call it a Bondi and not a Bondi. But if you've been ride or die with the Bondi for a long time, you've probably noticed how this shoe has become much more of a walker than a runner. Like, especially when the first Bondis came out years ago, we've been carrying the brand for 10 years. Like, this was a runner shoe, and now you're like, I see PGA caddies, I've seen priests, I've seen everybody wearing a Hoka. And if you are like, I'm a runner in it, and all of a sudden you see your grandfather wearing it, all of a sudden it's not that cool of a shoe. So I think it was kind of important for them to make sure that they were doing right by the runner, because the runner is really what took the brand from like here to here, and then everybody followed suit. So it's like they wanted to make a runner version of the Bondi, and that's what the Bondi 9 is. This supercritical midsole is much bouncy, much springier, it's softer, it's got a nice landing feel to it, so it should be a shoe that you can get some longer miles in and not feel clunky and not feel like it's too slow or you're sinking into it. It's got some pop to it. They added some cushion to it, they added some stack height to it, and now it's a 5mm drop shoe. So we added a little cushion, we added a little bit of heel, and now it weighs just a pinch more, but even those things considered, it's going to be a much more enjoyable ride if you're somebody who's running in it. If you're somebody who's walking in it, it's softer. And that was one thing on the old Bondis, is even though it was their max cushion neutral shoe, compared to some other shoes in that same category, like if you put on, in my opinion, a Bondi 8 and then put on like a New Balance 1080. Even though they're both categorized the same, I found the New Balance would be a little bit softer to me. So I think that by changing the midsole here, people that really want a true soft shoe for high cushion are gonna like this version more. Even though it might feel more like a runner shoe, I think people that were walking in the Bondi will actually appreciate some of these changes just as much as the runner will. I will also say they did add the price point to it. They added a couple bucks to it, so we're up to $170 now. And you know, that is pretty consistent with Hoka across the board in 2025. Is pretty much everything we saw, they just kind of added a couple bucks to it. I know that's the way the industry is going, but there are some brands that are trying to hold that, and Hoka did not. They're adding some bucks to it. It is what it is. So this guy, $170, coming out in January of 2025. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you wanted to pick up a Bondi, and I will have a link down below. Enter promo code RUNMOORE, you'll save 10%, and we'll ship it out for free. And if you find yourself in the greater Westminster, Maryland area, stop on by and say hello. Oh, hey, by the way, we've got some awesome new merch. If you wanted to pick up some RUNMOORE merch, we got that on our website too, and I like saying merch. So thank you so much for watching. Stop on by Westminster and say hello. Happy running, and we'll see you around town. Thanks for watching. To learn more about the Hoka Bondi 8, click the link on the screen to learn more.